My name is Ariel Posen. I'm a singer-songwriter and guitar player. Before becoming an artist, I spent the majority of my career being a guitar player for artists, for bands, in the studio, and on the road. Once I began my own solo career, I realized that I was shaped by my experience and that there were some interesting stories to tell. I wanted to ask a few colleagues and friends of mine who have had a somewhat similar but different road about their story and their experiences. I think there's a bigger story to tell here, and I think this is something that can be really helpful to a lot of musicians and artists on a similar path. So without further ado, on today's episode we have David Ryan Harris. All right, dude. So what initially drew you into becoming a performing musician?
I think I just loved singing more than I loved performing. Like the whole thing just seemed incredibly natural. It was almost like not saying that I'm a beautiful girl, but like if you see a girl that doesn't know she's pretty and you tell her she's pretty and she's like, what? Really? You know, like it was that sort of thing. So there was no real, I never had a burning desire to be famous, or, you know, I didn't have one of those light bulb moments like I saw Elvis on, you know, whatever, or I want to be like Michael Jackson. I always sang, and then that just kind of led me down a path of I just kind of fell into doing the thing that I was kind of feel like I was born to do.
Right. And so did you start playing in bands or just playing music kind of all the time with people, like high school, after? I've sang, you know, forever, and even sort of me realizing that I had a good voice was kind of by accident. I remember being on, I was on a school bus, and there were these girls that were seniors. I was probably in the 8th, maybe 9th grade, and I was just kind of singing under my breath, kind of whatever, and these, like, you know, attractive senior girls were like, is that you singing? And I was kind of like, yeah. And they were like, well, it was like, sing out loud. And I sang, and they all just kind of lost their mind. And I was like, oh, well, this is a thing that I can do. So I sang, and, you know, I always loved, like, I love Stevie Wonder and the fact that he seemed to have like this little a world. And by listening to his music, you felt like you were being transported into his world. And so the older I got, you know, like 14, 15, 16, I was like, well, I want to sort of kind of create my own world. I want to be able to kind of write my own songs. And so I just kind of picked up guitar just because, you know, I did my, it was kind of by process of elimination. Like I didn't want to do keys because keyboard players seemed like they had to be stationary. You know, bass, although it's probably my favorite instrument, I just didn't know a lot of bass player lead singers other than Sting at the time. So guitar seemed like the thing to do. And so I just kind of plucked around on guitar. There was another guy that lived in my neighborhood that had a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and he could play a few instruments. And so I wasn't really in bands, but he and I would make, you know, our versions of songs and like weird Thomas Dolby stuff around 15 or 16. And I really didn't get into a band until I was just out of high school, my freshman year of college. And that band ended up being this band I was in, Follow for Now. And we ended up getting a deal and doing a lot of touring around the Southeast. And, you know, even then, you know, the world is so different now with children being able to sort of plot out their, I say children, but people being able to plot out their trajectory just by looking at, you know, how do I do this on YouTube, or how do you, right,
you know, tons of resources, and those resources weren't really available. And once again, I think even then I just wanted to do the thing that I love to do with my friends. And I thought, you know, you get discovered and get a record deal by, you know, being discovered singing in a grocery store or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So we just kind of fumbled into it and, you know, just did it because we loved it.
Cool. Is that I feel like you posted a video a while back of you, like, were you hanging
Yeah.
from it? Yeah. Was that band?
That was that band.
Killer. Okay. So you were doing that. What happened? Like, how did the shift in career direction begin for you? Specifically to like, hey, I'm going to put up maybe my own thing or do my own thing.
Well, fast forward to that band kind of, you know, had its run. We
we got signed to Chrysalis Records and put out a record. We toured with like Pearl Jam on their first record, and um, had a decent run of it. And then I had my first son, my oldest son, Miles. And then my priorities shifted a bit into, how am I gonna, how am I gonna put food in this child's mouth? And I thought that the band, we were in some legal stuff with our managers, trying to get out of a deal with our managers, and the whole thing just got to be really ugly, and I felt like we were kind of stagnant, and I don't know. Although I love and miss the democracy of being in a band at the time, I just felt like um, it was more work for me than more work than I wanted to do for not very much credit. And so I was like, well, I just don't want to do this anymore in this particular group of people. And so I started just kind of writing songs for my own, or like songs that I would keep for myself. And then I met an artist in Atlanta, this girl, Dion Ferris, and she was putting out a record on Columbia. Um, Her A&R guy was Randy Jackson. And Randy was like, I like these songs that you're doing. Why don't you just, I don't need to produce them. Why don't you, put your crew together and produce these songs for her? So got together and did that, which was, I was always a guy in the studio that was looking over the engineer's shoulder, like, oh, what's that button do? Compress, like always kind of paying attention to that when, my bandmates were out in the hallway smoking cigarettes or whatever.
Right.
So I had a love for that side of it. Anyway, we do her record. There's a song on it that does really well. It was like the number one song on the radio in '94 or something. And then immediately out of that, I got the opportunity to sign my own deal with Columbia. There's a producer, really prolific producer and just amazing human being, Brendan O'Brien, who produced a bunch of Pearl Jam, a bunch of Rage Against the Machine, some Springsteen, just had a really prolific career. Is from Atlanta, and he had his own imprint through Sony. So I got signed to his thing, and I'm thinking like, Brendan's one of my favorite producers in the world. It's like, Brendan's going to produce my record. It's going to be amazing. And he was like, no, I actually think that he's like, I think you got it. I think you should produce it, and I'll mix it. And so I just kind of, tried to scale up all of my, I always had I had a cassette 4-track, and then I had a cassette 8-track, and, just tried to scale up all of that stuff, and then sort of apply all of whatever knowledge or lack of knowledge to making a for real adult record. And so I put this record out in '97, and still there was no great. I didn't know what kind of. I wasn't like, I want to be like a cross between this person and this person. I was just doing the thing that I love to do, and I know that I'm not an entertainer in that way. So I was just like, I want to make the music that I want to make and say the things that I want to say, and then hopefully the world will come to meet me. And I don't know, that didn't necessarily happen, but.
So it sounds like you were pretty like self-motivated. It wasn't, were you urged along by anybody else that was saying, you should really do this, man?
No, I mean, for me, it was like, I did about 3 years of college. And so I felt like by the time Follow for Now, that band was kind of done, I was like, well, what else am I going to do? Like, this is what it's like the mob. I was like, I'm too far in. I can't get out. I got to just kind of keep going. And also just the idea of like, maybe I'm making, whatever it is I'm making financially. The idea of me starting at ground level on some brand new thing, I was like, I just can't take that risk right now because I have all these other kind of responsibilities. And so I just kind of kept moving. And, the old adage about you jump and the road rises to meet you. I had to do. And, there were definitely people. Randy Jackson was really just super encouraging just because of sort of his stature. And he was like, no, I think you're really talented. And,
these songs are great. And, you know, he never really bullshit me. Like, I remember the first time we met, I sent him a cassette of like 30 songs. And when I talked to him, he was like, yeah, you know, I liked 4 of them, and this is why. And like, you know, when you send somebody a cassette of 30 songs, it's because you think you have 30 of the best songs that have ever been written. So just the fact that I had somebody in my corner that was of his stature and that was honest with me about about what it was that I was doing, and yeah, it kind of, you know, made me want to kind of keep going. And you know, there've definitely been moments where I'm like, you know, we're independent contractors, and there've definitely been moments where I'm like, man, I don't know if I can do this anymore. You know, I definitely hear a lot more no's than I do yeses, and they can be, you know, pretty demoralizing. But you know, I just kind of keep going because I feel like I wasn't put here. I feel like everybody's put here with some gift by which they're supposed to sustain life. And I know this is mine, and I wouldn't be put here with this gift if I weren't supposed to figure out what to do with it. And so I don't know. I guess it sounds kind of like, you know, kooky and, you know, metaphysical, but I just keep going because I'm sure this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Nah, man, I love that. So fast forward. Obviously, you've put out a handful of records. You're playing guitar for others. You're producing. You're writing with other people all the time. Now that you've spent, you know, considerable time on both sides, it's not even both sides. There's a few sides.
Right.
Do you have any grand insight into the music industry that you think would benefit others who are pursuing success or at least just a similar path?
I don't know. A few things. I think for artists, something I run into a lot of time is an artist thinking that the things that they love, they think the thing that they love is also the thing that they are. So you have a singer that can really, you know, sings at a B- level, and, you know, has like an Americana vibe, but she loves Beyonce. And it's like the thing that you love is not who you are. So I think a lot of times people have a problem differentiating what those things are. It's like you can love the Beatles but be a Metallica. You know, you can, and I think it's really, for some people, really difficult, particularly when you have just a couple influences, like a couple ingredients to whatever your soup is, to kind of figure out something that is unique. I remember, you know, early on, it's kind of in my musical guitar journey or whatever, Stevie Ray Vaughan, you know, figured pretty heavily. And part of the reason that he figured really heavily was that he was really upfront about who his influences were. And it was kind of like a gateway thing for me. And I realized that, he put Albert together with Jimmy and Kenny Burrell and all of these different things, and he made them into his own thing. So in that, he was not Kenny Burrell or Albert or Jimmy. He was his own thing because he, you know, was able to kind of put his own twist on things. And so I think for a lot of artists, it's you know, some people are so good that their imitation of the thing that they love is so spot on that all you hear is the thing that they're imitating.
Right.
And other people, it's like, you know, if I'm trying to sing like Donny Hathaway, I can't sing like Donny Hathaway. So it comes out like some other thing. So I'm fortunate that I can't do the thing that I wish that I could do.
Yeah, right.
And I think, you know, a lot of times we kind of beat ourselves up about, I can't do the thing that it is that I wish that I could do. But in that journey, you find something that is unique and you.
Yeah. And that's that's like finding your voice 101.
Right.
Most important thing. I agree with you. It's funny though, how, like you're saying, yeah, you wish you could sound like Donnie, but you wouldn't sound, you know, the way you do really if he wasn't in the picture as
for
an
sure.
influence.
I mean, there's some people, it's like, I'll say like, okay, well, like, let's say I'm working with a singer who loves Donnie and that's all I hear. And it's like, okay, if Donnie had never been born, then you wouldn't have a voice. It's like, but for me, it's like, if Donnie hadn't been born, then there would be still a little bit of Stevie. And if Stevie hadn't been born, then there would still be a little bit of Bill Withers. And, you know, like I try to have lots of ingredients to my thing. So I just, you know, being one-dimensional as great as it is to pay homage to the people that you love, I think is, really kind of do ourselves a disservice. And also, like, Stevie was also good for me in that he made me want to do the same sorts of things with like Paul McCartney, because some of the Beatles songs, like When I'm 64, and some of the like 40s dance bands, like I was like, where's this music come from? Because I know that he didn't invent it, so it made me go beyond. Like, it's like I want to hear what my heroes heard to make them who they are.
Yeah.
And that journey just turned me on to so many different types of things, and it helped me to make my whatever my soup is just a more just a richer sort of broth.
Totally. Yeah, that's the ultimate advice. It's just like if you're a fan of someone, find out what they are influenced by,
Right.
And then find out who they're influenced by. It is really an interesting thing, and I agree with you that Stevie Ray Vaughan is like a prime example of like wearing it on his sleeve and like letting the world know, but still finding a way to make it his own. I feel like a lot of people would, I don't know, they wouldn't make that as clear. They wouldn't admit it.
Right.
He took such pride in that.
Right.
And yeah, I agree with you. I always say like your influences are what shape you in your voice, but it gets to a point where you have to like kind of leave them at the door and say, thank you.
Right.
For all that inspiration. Now I'm going to keep going in my own path here, but like everything that you've done for me is essential, but like you're not coming for the rest of the ride. Now it's just me.
Yeah, it's like, your influences are like, okay, this is the hammer, these are the nails, and these are the screws. And I wouldn't want to present just hammer, nails, and screws to people. It's like, I want to go build my own house. Like, you've given me these tools.
Yeah.
The people that have influenced me have given me these tools. I'm going to go build my own house, and certainly it'll be informed by the tools that they've given me. But I'm going to make my house.
Yes, I love that. So, man, now how have your work priorities shifted these days? Like, what do you think about most when it comes to a project?
Man, I realize my superpower, if I have a superpower, is sort of an overview. I'm really good at overview. Unfortunately, I'm not great at overview for myself. But in terms of like hearing something or like hearing an artist talk about what it is that they're trying to do or the sound that they're going for or things like that, I'm pretty good at, because I've kind of lived a little bit of the artist life, a little bit of sideman life, a little bit of the producer life, and more often than not, an artist needs an advocate to help them get from point A to point B, because as artists, I think we're sort of distrustful of everyone along the way. So my priorities now are kind of shifting in the direction of, finding artists or situations where I can use that superpower. If it means, I can help you figure out how to get that sound, or I think this is kind of artist you are. I'm not the guy to do it, but I think you should talk to this guy and this guy. And I think if you guys put your things together, like I get an intense amount of joy out of seeing the little light bulb go off when an artist is heard and they hear something come back through the speakers and they're like, that's exactly what I was going for. Because I just remember how difficult it was for me early on trying to do that. So I'm just trying to position myself in a way to do more kind of producing or like executive producing, because I feel like sometimes I might be the guy to press the buttons and sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I may be the guy to help write the songs, and sometimes I'm not. I have no ego about, I need to have my name on shit, but I do love, kind of in a sweet spot where I'm young enough to be somewhat relevant, but old enough to have some wisdom. Like I can go in a room and say, oh, that's a guy that does a thing, but I'm not 100 years old and talking about recording on, we got to put everything on cassette.
Right.
So I'm just trying to, figure out a way, just in sort of my working style, the way that my studio is set up, the way that the types of projects that I get involved with, that I'm able to work, the ways that I like to work and bring what I think is unique about me to a given project. In the songwriting sort of sphere, you kind of find yourself
trying to be all things to all people, and you're like, oh, if someone comes in and they want to write a shiny pop song, I need to be able to figure out how to do that. If they want to do a, country and western thing, I want to figure out how to do, like I'm I can't be all things to all people. I have a particular way that I like to work and a particular sonic aesthetic that I like, and just kind of leaning into that. And yeah, I'll always make records, and I think I'll always hopefully have stuff to say. But the idea of me being an artist, it's not that it doesn't hold the same shine. It's just like, I don't know how, I would love to have a season of my career where my artistic decisions were based solely on artistic merit. Like, I'm sure like, or maybe, maybe I'm sure you have moments where you're like, well, this is the thing that I would love to do, or this is the thing that I hear, but I don't know that anyone wants to hear that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And that little struggle, that little person has been on my shoulder for 32 years. I remember when it wasn't there, and I feel like I made better art when I just didn't give a fuck. So in terms of my art, I just want to, it would be great I think it would be a great service and a great sort of, just a shrine to the gift that I've been given if I could, have a season where I just if I decide that my heart says I want to make music that's like just crickets and French horns, then I want to do it. And the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I'm making money doing something else. So
yeah.
Let the artist thing be what it is. I would like for the artist thing to be my hobby and not my main thing. I enjoy, more than I can say, playing with John and doing that side of my thing, and then a couple producing projects. And if those things can kind of keep my sort of financial fire stoked, I want to go make some weird music.
Yeah, it's the beautiful balance we all strive for, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I think that's a great answer, and it's going to kind of bleed into this next question. And that's okay if it does, if it's kind of the same answer. But, specifically as an artist, but again, like even as a producer, you're also an artist. Like,
right.
There's so much artistry that goes into producing when you're basically overseeing a project like that. But in any of those situations, how much of your work would you qualify as like innovative, or not even innovative, but like just fresh, like trying to keep things fresh, and like in such a closed modern market, where there's so many genres now and micro genres and whatnot, like how are you trying to keep things interesting or even just honest?
For me, in the past couple years, I've really been less interested in making records that sound like my heroes' records. There was definitely a time where I was like, man, if I could make a record that just sounds like Songs in the Key of Life, or if I could just make a record that sounds like, Prince's Controversy or Dirty Mind or whatever. Like, I just want to, although the Prince records are more sort of like my contemporaries, like Stevie was like definitely reaching back. If I can make a record that sounds like Still Bill, that would be amazing. Or Axis Bold as Love. And then lately I've just been like, well, it doesn't really, like, I'm trying to make a copy of a Polaroid. And I know that when they were making those records, they were reaching as far forward as they could reach. Jimmy in particular, outside of his, actual ability to play the guitar, he was also trying to get to a sound that was in his head, and the guitar was his medium. And so I felt like once I realized, it was like he was constantly reaching forward, and me trying to do something that sounds like Axis Bold as Love is me reaching backwards. So I'm just like, okay, well, what's the guitar supposed to do now? What's a guitar supposed to do in 2021? We've had electric guitars for a long time. What can I do with this tool that is, I was going to say that honors a guitar, but I don't even care about honoring the guitar. It's like, how can I make this guitar sound like right now? Guitar in particular, just because it's not as present on radio as it once was. So I kind of try to apply a little bit of that aesthetic across the board. Um, what is, what do drums sound like now? And, none of this stuff is like crazy experimental, but I'm just trying to break down the walls of what a particular instrument is supposed to do. And just get a little bit better at what would X person do in this situation. And, if I'm like, okay, the top of this song, I want to know what Chris Martin would do, but the bottom of this song is like, I want to know what Bob Marley's rhythm section would do. So I'm putting these things together. And I know that seems like I'm reaching backwards, but it's like, what would they do now? Or what was what does Chris Martin's thing, what does that feel like as opposed to what does it sound like? Because the feeling, I think, is transferable to different times. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that's sort of my thing. I mean, particularly with guitar. I mean, you see there's like, you love pedals like I love pedals, but it's like there's so many different colors and things that you can paint and ways that you can use a guitar now that have really kind of transcended pentatonic scales and me like trying to do my dime store version of what Stevie Ray Vaughan would do.
Right. Right.
So I don't know if that's the answer to your question.
Totally, man. Totally. I love it. So now that you have hindsight, would you change any of your decisions that, have got you to where you are right now, I guess? And you still got a long ways to go, but I mean, as of now.
I think I would have just had a little more belief in my vision earlier in my life. I think it's only now that I realize, like I really know what I'm doing. Like I didn't go to school for any of this, so I just always assumed that somebody else in the room was better at this than I was. And by nature, I'm just a fairly deferential person. I will never go into a room and say I'm the smartest person here. I know the best way to do stuff. Like I enjoy collaborative work, and so I more often than not would really defer to. All right, well, if you say that's the thing to do, and that might even go for like sort of career, business decisions, or sometimes musical decisions. I like I always say, I wish that my mother had taught me the value of being loud. Because she was always like, you don't have to be the loudest person in the room. You don't have to, you don't have to be the one drawing attention to yourself. And, I feel like that has served me well because it's made me a fairly good listener. But the value of me saying, no, I think this is what we should do. And I think this is how this should go. And this is how I see me, or see the situation or the song or whatever. I wish I'd leaned into that a little earlier in my life and career. And I mean, truth be told, I don't know that early on in my career I had a super clear vision of what that was. Like I said, I wasn't the guy that was like drawing stage plots and, singing in front of the fucking mirror. Like that wasn't my thing. Like I never wanted to be a star. I just loved to sing. I felt like it came supernatural to me. And so I was never, crazy obsessed with being a star. And, so I wasn't really working on what a vision of me was. But I wish I just had a little bit more of a handle on what that was and had the confidence to move forward with it. The people that I see that are successful more often in this business just have a level of confidence, even if some of it is sometimes bullshit, and I've just always been, it was more important to me that people leave an interaction with me going, you know what, that's a good dude, than, man, that dude can play his ass. Like I would rather you say I'm, a good dude than I'm a great singer, guitar player, or whatever. But I wish I'd been less of a great dude and more
Cause with my fingerprints on it, she still got my blood on her hands. Even if she don't know it, she is the reason I'm here. Looking for the strongest stuff, bartender fill my cup. I keep up alive, keep the fire going inside. Sipping this kerosene until she comes back to me. Yeah, we can love like a candle, but I blew out the flame. I can be a hard one to handle, idiot when there's a hurricane. But even if she don't know it, she is the reason I'll be right here till closing time, drinking until I'm alive. So keep up alive, keep the fire going inside. Sipping this kerosene until she comes back to me. Burn my tongue, little that burst. Got the heartbreak, I feel it's worse. Now it's my favorite drink. No poison tastes good to me. Won't you bartender please pour me another kerosene? Never letting go of what we had. Oh, you know it's burning my mind. Looking for my hope in the bottom of a shot glass. That's how I keep up alive, and I keep the fire going inside. Sipping this kerosene until she comes back to me. Burn my tongue, little at first, but the heartbreak I feel is worse. Now it's my favorite drink. No poison tastes good to me. So won't you bartender please pour me another kerosene?